Before the story begins, I'd like to ask you to subscribe and like. This will help the channel grow. The Silent Desk, Winter Detective Story. Snow had been falling since dawn, coating the city in a dull white hush that made even sirens sound distant. Inside Blackwood Investigations, the heaters hummed and coffee went cold on desks no one bothered to clean. Detective Nora Blake noticed something wrong the moment she stepped inside. Evan Cole's desk was occupied. Not by Evan, by absence. His chair was pulled back slightly, as if he'd stood up in a hurry. His coat still hung on the rack, pockets heavy with gloves and a scarf he never remembered to wear. The computer screen was dark, but the mouse was warm to the touch. Someone had been here minutes ago. Evan was new. Too new. 3 weeks into the job, fresh out of the academy, still writing everything down in a cheap spiral notebook. He was supposed to be shadowing Nora that morning. Instead, his phone went straight to voicemail. No message. No missed calls. No panic button activated. Nora checked the security log. The front door had opened at 6:42 a.m., closed again at 6:44. No forced entry. No alarms. Whoever came in knew the code, or had been let inside. On Evan's desk lay something that didn't belong. A folded receipt, damp from melting snow. It was from a roadside cafe outside the city. Time stamped 6:11 a.m. written on the back in block letters. Asterisk. He learns fast. Let's see if you do. Star. Nora felt the cold reach her bones. This wasn't random. This wasn't rushed. Someone had walked into her office and taken one of her own. The street outside the agency was quiet, blanketed in untouched snow except for one thing: footprints. Not frantic. Not uneven. 2 sets, walking side by side toward the alley. Nora crouched, studying them. Evan's boots were easy to identify. Cheap soles, uneven wear on the left heel. The other prints were cleaner. Heavier. Confident. There was no sign of a struggle. No drag marks. No broken snow. Whoever took Evan hadn't needed force. That scared her more than blood ever could. Cameras along the block showed Evan unlocking the door for someone just before sunrise. The man wore a dark coat, hood low, face hidden from the lens. Evan hesitated, just for a second, then stepped aside. Trust. That's what they used. The footage ended with both men disappearing into the alley. No vehicle visible. No plates. Just falling snow, swallowing the moment whole. Back inside, Nora searched Evan's files. He'd been working a minor fraud case, fake insurance claims, stolen identities. Small stuff. Or so it seemed. One name appeared again and again: Harlan Frost. Dead 3 years. Officially. Nora leaned back, staring at the ceiling. They didn't take Evan because he was important. They took him because he had seen something he didn't yet understand. And winter was buying them time. The phone rang at 9:03 p.m. No number. No distortion. Just Evan's voice, calm, controlled, rehearsed. "I'm okay," he said. "You're not looking in the right place." Nora didn't speak. She listened. "They said I asked too many questions," Evan continued. "They said winter makes people careless. They were wrong about one thing." A pause. Breathing. "They're scared of what's under the city." The line went dead. Within minutes, an encrypted email arrived. One image attached. A concrete room, frost crawling up the walls, Evan seated on a chair, hands zip-tied, eyes focused on something behind the camera. On the floor behind him, barely visible, was a symbol spray-painted in white. A snowflake. Broken at the center. Nora recognized it. It belonged to a case buried a decade ago. Missing witnesses. Sealed tunnels. People who vanished and were never reported missing because no one expected them back. Evan hadn't been taken to be silenced. He'd been taken to be used. The tunnels beneath the old industrial district were officially closed. Unofficially, they still breathed. Warm air rose through sewer grates, melting snow in perfect circles. Signs Nora followed like breadcrumbs. Inside, generators echoed. Lights flickered. Someone had been living down here. She found Evan's notebook on a metal table, pages torn out except the last one. A hand-drawn map. Coordinates. A note, asterisk. They're not hiding. They're waiting. Star. Footsteps echoed behind her. Men in insulated coats emerged from the shadows. Not criminals, professionals. Clean movements. No panic. This was never about the kid, one of them said. It was about you. Nora raised her gun. Winter held its breath. The standoff ended fast. Too fast. Police flooded the tunnels, tipped off by a message Evan had scheduled days earlier. A rookie mistake, or a brilliant one. Evan was found in a secondary chamber, shaken but alive. Hypothermia setting in. Still conscious. They underestimated time, he whispered. You taught me that. The kidnappers were part of a private recovery firm, hired to retrieve something Evan had unknowingly uncovered. Evidence linking city officials to illegal underground data storage. Evan hadn't been bait. He'd been the hook. Snow fell again the next morning, softer than before, as if the city itself had grown tired of holding its breath. The storm that had swallowed Evan for 3 endless days had passed, leaving behind silence, broken ice along the riverbanks, and questions that would never be fully answered. Evan returned to the agency a week later. No announcement was made. No applause followed him through the door. Just the familiar creak of the wooden floor, and the low hum of the radiator fighting the cold. He looked different. Thinner, his movements slower, his eyes sharper in a way that hadn't been there before. The kind of sharpness that comes from learning exactly how fragile routine can be. Nora watched from her office as he crossed the room. He paused at his desk, the one that had remained untouched since the night he vanished. His chair was exactly where he'd left it. His coat still hung on the back, forgotten in the rush of that winter evening. Someone had cleaned the desk. Carefully, almost respectfully, Evan ran his fingers over the surface, as if checking whether it was real. The notebook lay in the center, closed, its cover slightly bent from where Nora had carried it with her through every interrogation, every late-night lead, every wrong turn. She stepped beside him and placed her hand flat on the notebook. Rule 1, she said quietly. If someone wants you, make sure they regret it. Evan let out a short breath, not quite a laugh. I didn't know I had anything worth taking, he replied. Nora met his eyes. They don't take what's valuable, she said. They take what they think they can control. He nodded. He understood now. Later that day, Evan gave his statement again, not to the police this time, but to the agency. Details he hadn't shared before surfaced slowly. The way the van smelled of cold metal and fuel. The sound of boots on concrete. The voices that argued about whether he was worth the risk. How close they came to making a different decision. No names. No faces. Just intent. What unsettled Nora most wasn't what they'd done to Evan. It was how organized it had been. This wasn't a random abduction. It was a test. Of the agency. Of its reach. Of its loyalty to its own. By evening, the city lights flickered on outside the windows. Evan sat at his desk, writing. Not reports. Notes. Observations. Patterns he'd noticed while being watched instead of watching. Weaknesses in procedures. Gaps in assumptions. He wasn't a trainee anymore. Across the room, Nora updated a case file and closed it with a final click. The agency had survived worse winters, but this one had left a mark. From now on, no one worked alone. No one vanished without consequence. Outside, snow continued to fall, erasing footprints, smoothing edges, pretending nothing had happened. Inside, they knew better. Some seasons didn't pass quietly. Some winters taught lessons that never melted away. And that desk, once empty, would never be taken for granted again.